Would you trust a crumpled napkin over the meal you just ordered for your starving child? John freezes as he reads the 5 scribbled words smeared in red lipstick. Don't eat. Run now. Cold sweat instantly drenches John's collar as his hands tremble violently under the table. He grips his 6-year-old daughter's wrist, squeezing tight enough to bruise, the kind of panic that comes from knowing you're already inside the trap. He thinks the only words that matter. She found us and she wants Emma. Sarah isn't just his ex-wife anymore. She is the shadow in the kitchen with a vial of chemicals and a plan 3 years in the making. Just 15 feet away, behind the swinging double doors, she waits for the first bite. John has less than 30 seconds before she comes out to check on her victims. It is one exhausted father against a premeditated ambush designed to strip him of custody forever. His only weapon is a trembling waitress named Maria, who decided to break the rules. Unless John can move faster than the poison was meant to work. John abandons the steaming plates, scoops Emma into his arms, and sprints for the glass exit without looking back. The heavy kitchen doors crash open behind them with a deafening boom. A shrill scream pierces the diner air as blue and red lights flood the parking lot, transforming the dark diner into a chaotic strobe light of salvation. John stands shivering on the pavement, a small island of fear, as 3 squad cars screech to a halt to cut off the exits. It looks like an army descending on a single roadside shack. 3 hours earlier, John was buckling Emma into her booster seat when she asked the question that nearly broke him. "Daddy, do you think Mommy forgot my birthday again?" His hands froze on the seatbelt clip. The innocent hope in her voice was the cruelest part. He forced a smile and kissed her forehead. "We don't need to think about that, sweetheart. Tonight is our special dinner night." John had been running for 11 months. Not in a dramatic way with fake names and disguises, just quiet movements across state lines, Portland to Sacramento to Riverside. He worked construction jobs that paid cash. He enrolled Emma in schools that didn't ask too many questions. He changed their phone numbers every 6 weeks. The court had given him full custody after Sarah abandoned them, but the legal paper felt thin as tissue when he remembered her final words. "You'll never be safe with her." The Riverside Diner was supposed to be their fresh start. John had landed a real job at a warehouse. Emma loved her new first-grade teacher. They had a small apartment with cartoon stickers on the walls. For the first time in almost a year, John had stopped checking the rearview mirror every 5 minutes. He let himself believe they were finally invisible. "Can I get the spaghetti with the big meatballs?" Emma bounced in her seat as they walked toward the diner entrance. The neon sign buzzed, "Rosie's Family Kitchen," in warm orange letters. Through the windows, John could see families laughing at checkered tables. It looked safe. It looked normal. That was his first mistake. Inside, the smell of garlic bread and tomato sauce wrapped around them like a hug. A hostess with a bright smile led them to a corner booth. John deliberately chose the seat facing the door. Old hobbits. Emma colored on her kids' menu with broken crayons. John scanned the room one more time. Just families, just normal Tuesday night dinners. His shoulders finally relaxed. He didn't know that 15 feet away, behind the kitchen swinging doors, Sarah was tying an apron and smiling at the chef. She'd been working here for 3 weeks, waiting. Meanwhile, across town, Maria Sanchez was clocking in for her evening shift when her manager dropped the bad news. "Table 7 needs extra attention tonight. New cook Sarah says she knows the customers." Maria's stomach twisted at those words. In her 2 years waitressing at Rosie's, she'd learned that extra attention usually meant drama. She grabbed her order pad and headed to the floor. Maria was 28 years old and fighting her way back from a nightmare. 4 years ago, she'd fled her husband Miguel with nothing but her car and $200. Miguel had been charming at first, then controlling, then dangerous. He monitored her phone. He told her what to wear. He isolated her from friends. When she finally left, he'd promised to hunt her down. She spent 8 months sleeping in her car because shelters didn't have space. No one had warned her. No one had slipped her a secret note. She escaped purely by luck. Now she had her own apartment and a daughter in middle school, but the fear never fully left. She recognized it in other women's eyes, the way they flinched when their partner raised his voice, the way they apologized too much. Maria had learned the hard way what coercive control looked like. She'd learned that abusers don't stop just because you leave. They adopt, they plan, they wait. She pushed through the kitchen doors to grab drinks and froze. Sarah stood at the prep station with 2 plates of spaghetti. She was humming and sprinkling something from a small glass vial over the steam rising from the pasta. "Extra seasoning for table 12, Sarah said without looking up. Her smile was sharp as broken glass. "The man out there destroyed my life. Tonight, I get it back." Maria's blood turned cold. She'd heard these exact words before, from Miguel, from the man who'd promised to poison her coffee if she didn't come home. She glanced through the service window. Table 12. A bearded man in a blue shirt, a little girl coloring with crayons. The man looked exhausted but peaceful, the kind of peace that comes from finally feeling safe. Maria had a choice: stay silent and keep her job, or break every rule and save strangers. Her hand trembled as she grabbed a cocktail napkin. She pulled the red lipstick from her apron pocket. 5 words, that's all it would take. She thought about all the people who'd stayed silent when she was drowning. She refused to be one of them. At that same moment, John was helping Emma sound out the word beverage on her menu while the waitress approached with 2 steaming plates. Maria's heart hammered against her ribs. She had maybe 10 seconds. Sarah was watching from the kitchen window. The manager was checking tables on the far side. John smiled up at her, trusting and grateful. "This looks amazing. Thank you." Maria set down the plates carefully. Emma's eyes lit up at the mountain of spaghetti and 3 giant meatballs. "Daddy, look how big they are." The child reached for her fork. Maria's hand shot out and gripped John's wrist, hard. Her eyes screamed what her mouth couldn't say in public. She pressed the crumpled napkin into his palm and leaned close enough that her whisper barely carried. "Don't eat it. Run now." John's face drained of all color. He unfolded the napkin under the table. 5 words in smeared red lipstick. His hands started shaking so violently the napkin fluttered to the floor. His eyes darted to the kitchen, then to Emma, then to the exit. Maria saw the exact moment recognition hit him. His ex-wife was here, the woman he'd been running from for 11 months, and she wasn't here to talk. "Emma, baby, we need to go right now." John's voice cracked with barely controlled panic. He grabbed his daughter's wrist. Emma's face crumpled in confusion. "But Daddy, the spaghetti just—" John was already scooping her up, one arm under her knees, moving toward the exit. Other diners turned to stare. Maria stepped back, her whole body trembling. She'd done it. She'd broken the silence. The kitchen doors exploded open with a crash that made everyone in the diner jump. Sarah stood in the doorway, her face twisted with rage and disbelief. Her chef's apron was still splattered with marinara sauce. "You!" she screamed at John's retreating back. "You can't run forever. She belongs with me." Her voice shattered the peaceful dinner atmosphere like a grenade. Families grabbed their children. An elderly man knocked over his water glass. John didn't look back. He hit the glass door at full speed. Emma pressed against his chest, her face buried in his shoulder. The cold night air slapped his face. His truck was parked 50 feet away, too far. Sarah was already pushing through the door behind them, screaming obscenities. Then Maria did the second bravest thing of her life. She stuck her foot out. Sarah crashed face first into the floor, her scream cutting off with a grunt. Blue and red lights flooded the parking lot from 3 directions. John stood frozen on the pavement, gasping for air. 3 squad cars screeched into position, blocking every exit. Officers jumped out with hands on their weapons. Maria had called 911 the moment she'd seen Sarah with that vial. She'd told them everything: chemical poisoning, attempted kidnapping, a father and daughter in immediate danger. One officer approached John with her hands raised. "Sir, are you John Patterson?" He could only nod. Emma was crying into his shirt. "You're safe now," the officer said firmly. "We have a warrant for Sarah Patterson's arrest. She violated a restraining order by being within 500 feet of you. And if that food tests positive, she's looking at attempted murder." Before the echo of sirens faded, Maria pushed through the diner door with the 2 untouched plates wrapped in plastic. She walked straight to the nearest officer. "I witnessed everything. I heard her say she was poisoning the food. I work here. I'll testify." Her voice was steady despite her shaking hands. The officer took the plates and labeled them as evidence. Sarah was already in handcuffs, screaming about her rights and her daughter. John turned to Maria, this stranger in a white apron who'd saved his child's life. "Why?" His voice was hoarse. "You don't even know us." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "Because 4 years ago, I was in danger and nobody warned me. Nobody slipped me a note. I barely escaped alive." She pulled up her sleeve to show a long scar across her forearm. "My ex-husband did that when I tried to leave. I swore if I ever saw someone else in danger, I wouldn't stay silent." An older officer with gray hair approached them. His name tag read Rodriguez. "Maria, you potentially saved 2 lives tonight. That took incredible courage." He turned to John. "Mr. Patterson, I need you to understand something. What your ex-wife did tonight isn't just about tonight. This was a planned pattern of stalking and harassment. You need to document everything, every text, every time she shows up, every threat. Without documentation, the courts can't protect you." John's face crumpled. "I've been running instead of fighting. I thought if I just stayed invisible, she'd give up." Detective Rodriguez shook his head. "Abusers don't give up, they escalate. You need a lawyer who specializes in domestic violence cases. You need to file for an extended protection order, and you need to know your rights as a protective parent." Maria stepped forward again. "I know a family advocacy center in Riverside. They helped me learn about restraining orders and evidence collection. They have free legal clinics every Thursday. They taught me that documentation is the most powerful weapon against an abuser." She pulled a business card from her apron. "This is their number. Tell them Maria Sanchez sent you. They'll help you build a case so strong that Sarah can never get near Emma again." John took the card with trembling fingers. "I don't have money for lawyers. I work construction and—" Maria cut him off gently. "They work on a sliding scale. Some services are completely free. You don't have to do this alone anymore." Emma lifted her head from John's shoulder. "Daddy, why is Mommy being mean again?" John kissed her forehead. "Because Mommy is sick, baby, but these people are going to help us stay safe." Detective Rodriguez nodded. "We'll need your full statements tonight, but Mr. Patterson, I promise you this. Sarah won't make bail before her hearing. You have at least 72 hours of guaranteed safety. Use that time to go to the advocacy center, learn your legal rights, get the documentation system in place." He paused. "And maybe thank this woman properly. She risked her job and her safety for you." 3 weeks later, John was sitting in a small conference room at the Riverside Family Justice Center when the advocate taught him something that changed everything. "This is a safety journal," the woman explained, sliding a blue notebook across the table. Her name was Patricia, and she'd been helping abuse survivors for 15 years. "Every time Sarah contacts you, violates the order, or even drives past your building, you write it down. Date, time, witnesses, screenshots. The pattern is your weapon." John flipped through the pages, already half filled with examples. "I thought the restraining order was supposed to stop her." Patricia's expression was kind but firm. "Paper doesn't stop dangerous people, but documentation builds the evidence wall that sends them to prison. Most victims don't know this. They think one court order is enough." She pulled out a binder full of labeled dividers. "This is your evidence system. Phone records here, screenshots here, witness statements here, medical records here if needed." Maria had come with him to the appointment. She'd volunteered to be a witness since she'd seen Sarah's poisoning attempt. Now she sat beside John, learning the same system. "I wish someone had taught me this when I was running from Miguel," she said quietly. Patricia nodded. "That's why I do this work. Knowledge is protection. Every person who learns this system can teach 10 more." Emma was in the center's playroom with a counselor, drawing pictures of flowers. The therapist had explained that Emma would need help processing her mother's actions. Children internalize blame. They need professionals to teach them that a parent's abuse isn't their fault. John had never known that therapy for kids existed. He thought he just had to love Emma enough to fix everything. Here's what most people don't understand about custody battles with abusers. Courts want to believe both parents are good. They want reunification. Unless you can prove a pattern of dangerous behavior, judges will grant visitation. That's why tonight's incident is so critical. It's documented by police, witnessed by multiple people, and backed by forensic evidence. She topped the police report on the table. This is your foundation. John learned that day about coercive control, how abusers use psychological manipulation, financial abuse, and isolation to maintain power. He learned that Sarah's behavior over the years, tracking his location, showing up at his jobs, threatening to take Emma, wasn't love or persistence. It was stalking. It had a legal name and legal consequences. For the first time, John understood that the problem wasn't him running poorly. The problem was him not knowing he had the right to fight. Maria shared her own story during the session, how Miguel had emptied their bank account the day she left, how he'd called her work 40 times a day until she got fired, how he told the police she was mentally unstable so they wouldn't believe her. But once I learned to document everything, the pattern became undeniable, she said. He violated the protection order 8 times in 6 months. Each violation added jail time. Eventually, he moved to another state because the consequences got too real. Patricia handed John 3 more business cards. Domestic violence attorney who takes pro bono cases, therapist who specializes in childhood trauma, support group for single fathers on Thursday nights. She looked him in the eyes. You're not alone anymore. This center exists because people like Maria spoke up. Now you're part of this community, and someday you might be the one handing out cards to the next terrified parent. That night, John couldn't stop thinking about the 15 other people in the center's waiting room. Mothers with black eyes, fathers with haunted expressions, teenagers clutching restraining order paperwork. How many of them had been ambushed at restaurants? How many had no idea that documentation mattered more than emotional testimony? He called Maria at 10 p.m. I know this sounds crazy, but I want to do something. She answered on the first ring. I was hoping you'd say that. They met at a 24-hour diner, ironically, the safest place they could think of. Emma was with a trusted babysitter John had found through the advocacy center, a woman who'd survived domestic violence herself and now specialized in protective childcare. What if we created a workshop? John's words tumbled out fast and urgent. For parents facing custody battles with abusive exes, we teach them the documentation system. We teach them their legal rights. We teach them they don't have to run. Maria's eyes lit up. We could partner with the Justice Center, offer it monthly, free of charge. They sketched the plan on napkins. Module 1, recognizing coercive control. Module 2, evidence collection strategies. Module 3, navigating family court. Module 4, building your support network. Module 5, teaching your kids safety without traumatizing them. We're not lawyers or therapists, John said, doubt creeping in. Maria shook her head. We're better, or survivors who learned the system. We're proof it works. Detective Rodriguez agreed to guest speak about police documentation. Patricia offered the Justice Center's conference room for free. Within 2 weeks, they had 23 people signed up for the first workshop. Single mothers, single fathers, grandparents raising grandkids, all of them fighting abusive exes through the court system. The night before the first session, John pulled out the crumpled napkin with red lipstick words. He'd kept it in his wallet. Don't eat. Run now. 5 words that had saved Emma's life. But running had only delayed the confrontation. Fighting back with knowledge and documentation was winning the war. Maria stood at the front of the conference room on workshop night and told her story. All of it. The abuse, the homelessness, the fear, the moment she'd seen Sarah poisoning the food and made the choice to act. I was silent for too long, she said, but every person in this room has the power to break that silence. Not with violence, not with revenge, with paperwork, evidence, and the law. John taught them the safety journal system. He showed his own journal, already 60 pages deep with Sarah's violation attempts. She tried calling from 14 different numbers. She sent flying monkeys, mutual friends, to interrogate Emma at school. She posted lies about me on social media. Every single attempt is documented with screenshots and timestamps. He held up the binder. This binder got her denied bail at the hearing. This binder is why she's facing 3 years in prison. Paper beats poison. A young father in the back raised his hand. My ex threatened to take my son to another country. How do I prove that? Maria walked him through passport alerts, international custody agreements, and flagging threats with Child Protective Services. Document the threat, report it to authorities, then it's on record if she tries to flee. The father's shoulders sagged with relief. He thought he was helpless. By the end of the night, every person left with a safety journal, a binder system, and a list of free legal resources. They left with something more important: hope, the kind that comes from knowledge instead of luck. 1 year later, the same Rosie's family kitchen looked different through John's eyes. He walked in with Emma, now 7 years old and giggling about her soccer game. The restaurant had new management. Maria had been promoted to assistant manager after her bravery made local news. She'd earned the respect of everyone who heard her story. John and Emma slid into their favorite corner booth, the same booth where everything had changed. Maria brought them menus with a huge grin. The usual? Emma nodded enthusiastically. Spaghetti with big meatballs, but Daddy, we can eat it this time, right? John laughed and ruffled her hair. Yes, baby, we're safe now. Sarah was serving 18 months in prison for attempted poisoning, stalking, and child endangerment. The evidence John had compiled made her plea deal the only option. She'd be released with permanent supervised visitation only. Emma would never be alone with her. The court had seen the pattern. The documentation had worked. Maria sat down across from them during her break. We had 41 people at last week's workshop. 41. Her voice was thick with emotion. And 6 of them are now volunteer facilitators teaching others. She pulled out her phone and showed them messages. Parents thanking them for saving their custody cases. Survivors who'd learned to fight back legally and won. John looked around the restaurant. Families eating together safely. No hidden threats. No poison in the pasta. Just normal Tuesday night dinners. You know what's wild? He said to Maria. A year ago, I thought my only option was running forever. I didn't know I had rights. I didn't know documentation mattered. I didn't know there were people who'd fight beside me. He held up his water glass. To the woman who slipped me a napkin and taught me there's a better way. Maria clinked her glass against his. To everyone who chooses to speak up instead of stay silent. To everyone who learns their power and teaches 10 more. Emma raised her milk glass too. And to spaghetti that's safe to eat. The 3 of them laughed together. Survivors teaching survivors. Knowledge spreading like wildfire through a community that had been suffering in silence. John now carried business cards in his wallet, not for his construction job, for the Riverside Family Justice Protection Workshop. Every time he met a struggling parent, he handed them a card and told them Maria's story. Because that's how change happens, not with one dramatic moment, but with one brave person who refuses to stay silent, then another, until the silence itself becomes impossible. The crumpled napkin with red lipstick words was now framed in the Justice Center lobby. Beneath it, a plaque. 5 words that started a movement. If you see something, say something. You might save a life and change a community.